All right, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Doc and the Radical program. And today we're going to be dealing with Tyree Nichols and other of our people and the whole situation of what we should be doing here in America right now. This is nothing new. This is something that has been going on. And we're going to get down straight to the root and what needs to be done in order to stop. Before we go ahead and get started, we'll let Doc come on in and introduce himself.
I am Dr. James Thomas Jones III, Catherine Viola Jones's baby boy. That is the highest title that I will ever have. Um, I am an associate professor of African American Studies and in history. I focus on civil rights, Black power, Black popular culture, hip hop culture, manhood studies in particular. Um, Writer, blogger. Blog site is manhoodraceculture.com, and YouTube channel is Manhood, Race, and Culture. So would love to hear from you. Love to interact with you. That's me in a nutshell.
All right, thanks, Doc. And so um, we want to start off. Some people believe, Doc, that um, laws are the answer to the
Hmm.
problems that we face. We hear them say it all day long. We need new laws. We need better laws. We need laws. Law, law, law. Um, what's your thoughts on that? Is that what the problem is? That the answer to this problem?
Not at all, because laws are not sufficient to restrain the lawless. And that's a problem that you have. If you just enforced the existing laws, which they don't, I would like to see what would happen. Now, if enforcing the existing laws doesn't fix the problem, well, then let's move on to some additional laws. But this matter reminds me of something Brother Malcolm said during his lifetime. That here you have all these laws. You have a Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act that is repeated and over and over again, and you haven't even enforced the ones from the first part initially. So I don't know if laws are not going to, in many ways, tame that beast that man has become. It's not going to work that way. And we can talk about gun laws, we can talk about all those things, but the people who are most likely to step outside the confines of law are, they may be aware of the law, but they don't care about it. It's not enough to restrain them, and that's who you should be addressing.
Mm. And Doc, let me ask you because we've heard Benjamin Crump, we've heard
Yeah, I knew
uh,
that brother was. I knew that brother was gonna pop up.
most
Benjamin
definitely.
Crump and Al Sharpton. Brother, if anything ever happened to me, look, I want this to be known publicly. Al Sharpton does not know me. I've met the brother two, three times, okay, but he does not know me. He is not capable of delivering a eulogy about me. Don't go get Al Sharpton. Go get my uncle Jeff Jones. He knows me, and he could deliver a eulogy for me.
Hmm. Definitely. But these two, just to name these two, they are part of the proponents that are keep saying for we need new laws, we need new laws. Um, and we would think that they know what you just said. They know about what you just said. That should be common, that we should have that understanding that no, enforce what we got on the books, and that should take care of it. So what do you think their motive is to be suggesting, not just to our community but to America, to the world, that we need new laws on the books? What is that all about in your estimation?
I think that a part of it, and if we move them into the realm of politicians or political leaders, which in many ways they've created that niche of not being elected yet being a political figure and a political leader within the community. I think that they are playing the long game, and this ensures their relevance. that as long as you're going out there and you're talking about additional laws, well, we need to do this, we need to do that, the people will rally behind that because, one thing that you can say about our people is quite simply that when they know that something is wrong, that there's an injustice going on, they have an internal soulful yearning to go ahead and address that and to make it better.
Mm.
Unfortunately, we aren't seeing a lot of black leaders who are very clear on diagnosing a problem and then issuing a relevant, reasonable solution to that problem. What we have are rabble rousers and phrase mongers. It
Mm.
reminds me of the old church where they bring in a very charismatic preacher and he would get up there and I'll use the term that I've heard some preachers use. He'd get up there and huck a buck, get the people all riled up and what have you, and they
Mhm.
standing up and they giving money and they emotional. Some of them, the spirit of the Lord is here, the Holy Ghost has come down and on some of them. But once the dust settles, if you go up to them and you ask them, so what was his message?
Mm.
They can't tell you. So much of it is emotionalism. So much
Mm.
of it is pandering to that internal yearning that that something is wrong. So let's rally together and let's make it. It's the same thing that the people who gave money to Umar School. You
Mm.
know, if they were in their rational mind, they would have known that this was a con, that there was no school coming.
Mhm.
However, that inner yearning of collectivism that kind of lifts up the black soul, that's hard to stamp out. And thank God it's hard to stamp out because we're still human and we're still trying to make the world a better place. Many of us are, not all of us, but many of us are. But
Mhm.
that's a yearning, that's a inclination that is easily exploitable by those who are not supported by scruples or in possession of a moral compass.
So, Doc, when you say that they're trying to play the long game, um, to me that says that they're in it not for justice, but they're in it for what they can fill their pockets. Like they did an interview with Benjamin Crump on his personal jet, and he said straightforwardly, you know, prior to me taking these cases, I wasn't living like this. But it's
Mhm.
these cases that able me to afford, these luxuries, So,
Mhm.
he's a pretty rich man. He has generational wealth off the
Mhm.
death of black people.
You
First of
know,
all, is that the right? Is that right?
no, I'll answer that question. Unlike some people who like to him and haw, the answer is a simple no. That's not right. That's incorrect. If that is your sole purpose, you're morally bankrupt. It reminds me of something a boxer said. For people listening, for young people below the age of 30, there used to be a sport called boxing that was
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really entertaining for us. Now y'all have cave fighting, which is something different. However, a boxer said this about Don King.
Mm-hmm.
He said, the thing about Don King is this, and I think that this can be extrapolated across so many charismatic leaders, regardless of race or gender. He said, the thing about Don King is this, that you can get rich with Don King,
Mm-hmm.
but he's going to get rich regardless if you do or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that sums up
Mm-hmm.
how this game is often played by so many of our so-called leaders. It's what's the next cause? What's the next cause? Because when that
Mm-hmm.
cause is hot on the fire, it maintains their relevancy. It maintains them in the public eye. I get it. I disagree with it, but I do get it. that quote unquote racial justice work and freedom fighting and standing up for the people for a certain cadre of individuals, very few, I might add, is extremely lucrative. Others, unfortunately, if you go and you look at Mutulu Shakur, you look at the Black Liberation Army, you look at many of the Panthers, go look at Bobby, look at Huey, look at Eldridge. These are men who, in many ways, if they weren't penniless, they were close. They gave their life to the movement, and the old mantra that the Panthers used to always talk about is that you don't take even a thread from the people has been lost. Now even our leaders are desirous of riches and fame, and that's not what Fannie Lou Hamer was about. That's not what Ella Baker was about. That's not what Baird Rustin, Asa Philip Randolph, and the list goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's closely associated with that type of behavior is a subconscious belief that Black folk, and this is I'm speaking about the leadership, that Black
Mm-hmm.
folk ain't gonna never get out this fix anyway, so I might as well go and get mine. At
Mm.
least one of us will.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Doc, you taught us a few years ago. You said the greatest word to describe America is the word nigger. Um, and I think this is a good time to go back over that. Can you break that reasoning down?
Now you got to remind me what I said. I said that the greatest word to describe America is the word nigga. Are you
Yeah,
sure that's what I said?
that's what you said. I ain't never forgot
What was
that
I?
one.
What was I talking about when I said that? 'Cause you brought some a hornet's nest.
I think we were talking about the making of America, and you got the land of the free, the home of the brave, all
Mhm.
these things to describe the greatness and the powers of America, and they believe that this what America is. And then you came with, well, really, the greatest word to describe America is the word nigger.
Okay, I think that what I was talking about is quite simply that when you're talking about the rallying point of white folk, and keep in mind this idea of white folk is a social construct. There is no white land. Now we can talk about the Caucasus Mountains. I know brothers like to talk about that. They like to talk about you, but there is no white land, just
Mhm.
as there is no black land. These are social constructs. So when you're talking about the concept and the understanding of nigger, Malcolm's once again, Malcolm's genius. He says it this way. He says that the first word of English that the immigrants learn, and he's talking about these immigrants who will serve as, in many ways, the grease within the Industrial Revolution to be used up and then discarded away. Um, he said the first word that they learn when they hit Ellis Island is nigger. And you have to remember that blackness has always been the rallying point for whiteness. And that's a very difficult thing for people to really comprehend because really there are no white people. White people rally and know that they're white because black people are here. If you removed all non-white skinned people, they would probably go back to calling themselves Irish, Polish, Italians, Russians. But in this land, in this nation, because they can point to the quote unquote nigger, they know that they're white. And in many ways, when you're talking about the presence of black folk, James Baldwin said it this way. He said, "What would America be without our black folk?" Malcolm would probably say, "What would America be without niggers?" Because quite simply, we are the glue that binds white America together far too often.
And so that on the social construct, uh, if we were to use the term African and Caucasian, now that would not be a social construct. Am I correct?
African, you're dealing with a place. You can point to Africa, but even that is kind of a social construct because this is one of the things that I often talk about in my early African American class. I
Mhm.
take my students, we don't begin in Roanoke and Jamestown. We actually go all the way back to Umofia, which is the Nigerian village that Chinua Achebe, where he sets the story, Things Fall Apart, which is if you've never read it, wonderful story about how things literally are going to fall apart within that society. The the African, I'll say it this way, and my students often bristle at this until they're done with the book. But my argument is that the white man created the African because prior to the white man arriving, the African did not exist. They were not talking about a concept of a larger group. And for instance, if you talk to Africans today and you ask them where they're from, they take for granted that Americans don't know anything about geography, that we're actually the um, the dim-witted people on the face of the planet Earth. And Africans have this joke that, and really it's an international joke, that this is a joke. What do you call a person who speaks one language? An American.
Mhm.
Because they're speaking French, they're speaking, along with their native tongue.
Mhm.
Um, the African, if you ask them where they're from, they'll say Africa. And then if you press them, they may say Nigeria. If you press them more, they may say what? Igbo. And this concept of solidarity of the African, I mean, let's be very, very clear on this, that there has always been discord amongst Africans on the continent. The same way one could argue that there was discord amongst Europeans in Europe. It's a natural occurrence. And if you look at the indigenous population as well, they battled each other. They fought wars with each other, against each other. And it isn't until these pale face people come here and you all get the understanding that they plan on pushing y'all brown cells into the Pacific Ocean. All of y'all, that you need to come to a planning session and say, look, we need to, put our beef down and handle this menace that's coming to our being. And so that's one of the things that for me we've yet to get to, as far as Black folk intellectually understanding that. And a big part of that problem, and this is Garveyism, this is Pan-Africanism. A big part of that problem is that you're educated by those who benefit by your scatterbrainness. And so if you look at it from that perspective, it's not accidental that Black folk are so ruthless to each other. It's not accidental that Tyree Nichols was beaten so viciously by other Black men. That at that moment there was no racial solidarity there. In their mind, Tyree Nichols was a nigga.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
that's really what it comes down to. So you're talking about the idea of, and this is a wickedness about it all. You have Black men and Black women and even Black children. If you read Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye with Pecola Breedlove, um, Black folk have been convinced about certain negative characteristics about Black folk, and have amazingly been able to make themselves as individually the exception. So you'll come across Black folk who believe that Black people are niggas, but they're not a nigga in their mind. They're somehow different in regards to this socialization and this talking about racial identity and how you conceive yourself and what have you. There's always the personal exception in regards to that. But the truth of the matter is that our people, when you really sit down and you really think about it, we can talk about heart disease, diabetes. We can talk about a litany of physical ailments and diseases that our people suffer from. But there is not one that's more comprehensive and thorough in touching so many sectors of our community than mental illness. And it's not even close. Not even close.
Doc, why hasn't, let me not put the question that way to you, let me rephrase it. Do you think that in these churches, in the mosque, wherever Black people go in mass to praise the God that they worship, do you believe that it is the responsibility of whether it is the imam or the pastor, whoever that spiritual leader there, is it their responsibility to not only speak on, what it was in Jesus' day, but to correlate that message to what we're going through here today, to be able to direct the people in the proper way? Do you think that this is something they should be doing?
They must do it if they're going to be relevant. I don't care who you are, what type of believer you are, you will never be able to go back into the Garden of Gethsemane and do anything. Okay. We need to have, we hear this phraseology that we believe in the true and living God.
Right.
Well, if you're talking about the true and living God, there's got to be some applicability to what he taught in the present moment. It has to be the very breath of God. And to not do that, to not be doing that is a betrayal of the gospel. It's a betrayal, it's an attack upon everything that's holy. You can't you can't not do that and remain relevant. It's impossible. And any attempt to skirt the modern contemporary times when scripture is so useful in regards to that is wrong. And I believe that we need to have a very serious conversation. And I primarily deal with black folk, but this would extend to other people's faith, other races as well, races and ethnicities. We need to have a very, very serious talk about the the exercising of emotionalism from our religious worship services in favor of information, in favor of things that would help you right here and now, versus breaking into a familiar ditty that gets everybody running around the church with their hands up and nothing is being taught. And this actually brings to light a larger question. And it is quite simply, and I have to deal with this with my students who often come to me and complain about some of my colleagues saying, well, they don't know anything about black people, this, and that. And I'm like, well, where would they have learned it?
Mm.
And when you're talking about a lot of pastors, a lot of preachers, or what have you, what is the tree that they come from? Because if they have not studied these things, they don't know them. And it's just what it is. There's no getting around that. You can't teach and instruct on something that you don't know.
Mm. And that when you say, because you used a really strong word, relevant,
Mhm.
to make them relevant. Would you say if you're in, okay, how would you really define relevant? Is that by what size church you are? If you got a big church, then that means you're relevant. You got a small church, or how are we defining what makes you relevant?
What is your influence
Mm,
in in in
mm,
and pouring into the minds and the souls and the hearts of the people. That's your relevance.
Wow.
You can have tens of thousands of members and have no relevance whatsoever. You can just be an entertainer, and your people will die laughing, but they shall surely die without having any relevance whatsoever beyond these four walls. You look at a brother like Jeremiah Wright. You can say
Mhm.
whatever you want to about Jeremiah Wright, but you can never accuse him of not being relevant.
Right.
You can look
Mhm.
at my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Johnny R. Heckert. Say whatever you want to. The man was relevant, and his
Mhm.
messages were relevant. And you look at me, and you will in many ways hear some of what he said, because he poured that into me. The exact
Mhm.
same thing with my professors at the Ohio State University. You
Mhm.
know, um, I had I had a very my undergraduate and my undergraduate no, she was my master's from a master's, Dr. Paulette Pierce. She was the first woman, first professor who had pulled me into her office and told me flat out, you can do this. You could be a professor. It's going to take you a little time because I'm first generation college. I was rough around all the edges. Um, she said it'll take you a little time, but you have the intelligence to be able to do this. There was a conference that Dr. Pierce was speaking at, and several of my students came up. Well, they called me and they said, Dr. Jones, we heard a woman here who she sounded exactly like you.
Mm.
And I'm like, really? Who is it? And they said, oh, her name is Dr. Pierce. I said, oh, please go up to her and leave the phone on speaker so I can hear and tell her that she sounds like me. And they went and did it, and I heard her say, "Sound like him? He sound like me. Everything that he learned from me." And the the style, the way I say things,
Mhm.
yeah, that's her.
Mm.
There's no doubt whatsoever, and I will publicly admit that. So when you're talking about relevance, are you not only conversant on the topics, on the pressing topic today, but are you also courageous enough to continue are you courageous enough to step into that gap, into
Mm.
that abyss where there is no, you're talking about faith, step on out there and tell the truth.
Mhm.
And there's no guarantee that you're going to survive
Mm.
that venture into truth. But
Mm.
relevance and courage, you have to have it. It's as indispensable as, and this is one of my favorite moments of a movie, the very beginning of The Gladiator, where he goes and Maximus goes and he daps up all his men and he says, strength and honor. you know and when you talk about this very thing as far as leadership, you're asking for relevance and courage,
Mm.
and to really be learned and be studied enough that you're able to advance a very progressive type of position.
Mhm.
It's crucial.
Mm.
If you don't do that, you're wasting our time. And if you're wasting our time, you should get out the way.
Definitely, definitely. Um, Doc, a lot of pastors I've heard say, um, well, we need to pray more. We
Mhm.
need to pray the problem away. Is this problem, and do you really think that that's what God wants us to do, to pray the problem away? Will that work?
To pray the problem away,
Yes.
um, how can I address praying the problem away? I actually do believe that prayer is indispensable in regards to what it is that we're doing. I believe that if you're really seeking, how can I put this? You're seeking a solution, a path to the solution of this. Prayer is indispensable. Yes, we need to pray. However, we got to put some work in with that. You can't just, faith without works is dead. So the idea of continually praying and not doing anything tangible, anything concrete, after a while, that's the aroma of cowardice.
Mm,
No mistake about it. That's cowardice.
mm,
And there's
mm,
there's nothing there's nothing that you can say or that you can do about that. Because now what you're doing is in many ways seeking to grab a revolutionary figure like Yeshua, like Jesus, and hide behind him. You're not trying to mimic or replicate what it is that he did. What you're
mhm.
saying is, let's just wait on the Lord. Matter of fact, I was just listening to the Fred Hammond song. Them that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. So wait on the Lord. Yeah, you may want to wait on the Lord to come and stand beside you as you begin this fight. I'm not saying going into the fight without, as they put it, the full armor of God, without the covering of prayer. But after you've done that, then we need some action.
So that let me ask you, if Jesus was present and during this thing, you believe that he would leave the church and go into the street and do battle against the police, or what? How, like the thing used to say back in the day, what would Jesus do?
Hmm.
What do you think that he would do if he was present right here, right now? If he came across a scene of Tyrell Nichols,
Tyree Nichols,
Tyree
yeah.
Nichols getting beat right there, what would Jesus do in your understanding?
He would have done what was done with the three Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace. He would have jumped in the fire with them. He would have jumped in the fracas. He wouldn't have done what these people do, which is quite simply, you know, I got you, bro. And I've told my students, I told my son, I've told everybody, look here, you better hope they kill me, because if they beat me down and I look up and you holding an iPhone and you ain't even throw the iPhone at them, you just trying to record this good butt whooping, for posterity. No, no, get in here with me. And I believe that that's what he would have done, because in every way, you can, whatever figure that you're talking about, religious figure, except for maybe Beelzebub, maybe Satan, Lucifer, the devil, is predicated upon an idea of righteous action.
Right. Mhm.
And if you don't have the courage to be righteous, then you're unrighteous. Let's just call it what it is. And that's, it's not fine, but that's who you are.
Now, Doc, but um, are you equating breaking the law, jumping in there to save the victim, which would be breaking the law? Are you equating that with righteousness?
Yes.
Mm,
You are under no moral compunction to honor an unrighteous law. I mean, within the military, I've not been in the military, but except for, the Black Liberation Army, I'm a
mm,
veteran of that. Um, they have, soldiers are able to not
mhm,
follow a order that is immoral, illegal, or what have you.
mm.
Yeah, I mean, come on. And those people they got a jail for you to go to. Okay, versus just in general. Yeah, you by Dr. King talked about that you can't be constrained by laws that are in every way immoral. If you do that, you shall never get out of this fix that you in. Okay. Yeah, we need some people who are willing to get into some good righteous trouble.
Exactly.
And we
Exactly.
we need more people who are willing to support them and back them, who won't cower and say, "Oh, they got them. You see, I told you they was going. You go around and that Maurice, he talk all that talk, and look at him now. Look at they made an example out there, brother.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. Well, I want to go and share the next video we're going to talk about um, as we about to get into the Tyree video. Okay, let's see, where is, okay, so let's watch this one.
The biggest mistake you made, Mississippi, you killed the son of a Muslim in the state of Mississippi, where they have been killing our brothers and sisters in the jail, saying that they hung themselves, and the government backs up their wicked lies. I'm asking God in the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to bring his wrath down on Mississippi. I'm asking God, I want you to know that my words are not going to be empty. As fast as I speak them, God is going to answer. Death and destruction is coming to Mississippi. I want all of you to know that Farrakhan is not in America to talk no crap. Farrakhan is not no blowhard. I am backed by God and I'm from God, and death is gonna visit Mississippi. The biggest mistake you made, Mississippi, you killed the son of a Muslim in the state of Mississippi, where they have been killing our brothers and sisters in the jail, saying that they hung themselves, and the government backs up their wicked lies. I'm asking God in the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to bring his wrath down on Mississippi. I'm asking God, I want you to know that my words are not going to be empty. As fast as I speak them, God is going to answer. Death and destruction is coming to Mississippi. I want all of you to know that Farrakhan is not in America to talk no crap. Farrakhan is not no blowhard. I am backed by God and I'm from God, and death is going to visit Mississippi. The biggest.
All right. And so again, that was Minister Farrakhan in 1993, where he talked about, he was in Mississippi, and one of the brothers, Muslim sons, was murdered in the jail. And also in that speech, you didn't show it in that clip, but even in that speech, he said, you made a mistake when you killed Christian sons too. You made a mistake. And then a few days later, the flood did come. Doc, do you think that when we talked about preachers should be preaching, to make it relevant, to make it motivate the people to do, is that an example of what you're talking about?
Well, certainly. I mean, come on now. You know the brother is totally relevant. There's no denying that. You can disagree with the message, how he analyzes it or what have you, but you can't really push back against his courage and his willingness, his eagerness to address the hot button issues that are facing our community. And to be honest with you, is always been, and this is sort of my thing about the dear brother. Um, the fact that you guys have your own literary organ, The Final Call, has allowed you to get your own message out. And the truth of the matter is that poor people, meaning those individuals who are dependent upon others for anything. In this case, we're talking about media. Other times we can be talking about economics. Poor people cannot afford to talk shit, because if they're not independent, they shall soon be brought to their knees immediately. So that has always been one of the best things about the Nation of Islam, that they have the independence. They can stand alone. It reminds me of Rakim, I stand alone and need nothing to lean on. They're able to stand alone and stand really through blowing winds. And as Dave Chappelle said on Saturday Night Live, I've never seen anything positive come after these two words, the Jews. One cannot argue with the Nation of Islam structure being able to withstand even the horrific hurricane that we all know comes from that's going to come when you address, just for this illustration, the Jews. Yeah, I mean, the brother is relevant. He's always been relevant, and there's there's something to be said for being still normal, still human, still moved by the suffering of Black folk. Because if we're going to be honest about it, that man could have taken riches and just gone, and be somewhere sitting around, aloof, not having to come amongst the unclean. But in many ways, very similar to Jesus. He's not only come amongst the unclean, he's lived there with
Right.
them, and that's just, it's just what it is. And truthfully, I don't think that the greatness of Minister Farrakhan will be appreciated until he's gone 20 to 30 years. When you see that these men are national treasures that are not easily replaced. I mean, if you go back and you look at SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, Dr. King's organization, what happened when King met his demise? SCLC, it didn't totally destroy itself, but it wasn't relevant anymore.
It wasn't. Doc, what you just said, I was watching this movie, and I forget what it was called, but it was on Martin Luther King. And this part I didn't know anything about. When he moved to Chicago, now I knew he was up in the Chicago area, but I didn't know.
He tried to take on that daily machine.
Exactly. But I didn't know he moved into the apartments, where our people were, and was suffering the same things that they were suffering. I thought he was somewhere nice up in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? At a nice place to lay your head and that. But he didn't do that.
Yeah, but see, let me push back against that a little bit. Can you simulate the grind of 30 years by moving in for 3 weeks? You get what I'm saying? It's kind of like these people who go to deal with the hungry. Yeah, you can go in there. Yeah, I'm not gonna eat well. Well, you nourished. You coming up in there with a full belly. Okay. And then the other thing is, are you really suffering like they suffered? And that's kind of what I would say in regards to Dr. King in that.
Mm.
Kitty cage.
So in essence, that was no more than just a stunt.
I'm not gonna call it a stunt, because Dr. King was there. He could have been somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of chafe at the idea that who's the brother from Atlanta, Maynard Jackson. Maynard
Mm-hmm.
Jackson did the exact same thing. He moved into a Atlanta housing project to, he's gonna live there to, yeah. It always reeks to me of playing poor.
Mm.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That there's some people who were some children who were suffering from lead poisoning, I would imagine, in Chicago at that time. There's some people who were dealing with malnutrition in Chicago, dealing with all these different ailments that affect poor Black people. An uncomfortable bed with cameras around just it doesn't hit me the same. And it just doesn't.
Mm.
It doesn't.
Mm. Do you think that that the preachers, the leaders, should actually be in the street, with the people, walking amongst, to be able to have that kind of access to them?
I mean, you're supposed to be the shepherd of the sheep. You should be in their midst. There shouldn't be a moment where you're not in their midst. There shouldn't be a moment where you don't know the name of your parishioners, of your flock.
Mm.
It's one of the one of the things that I said about the brother Joel Osteen down here. One of my friends, he goes there to Osteen's church, and I said, "Come on, man." He was like, "Yeah, that's my pastor. He the number one pastor in America." Excuse me, number one pastor in America. Blah 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 blah. I said, "Man, Joel Osteen don't know your name. He don't know your mama. You know what I'm saying? He knows
Exactly.
nothing about you. You show up there to hear a message. I mean, I'm more efficient. I can turn on the cable and watch it if I want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see that as leadership. I don't see that as pastoring,
Mm.
because your flock they don't know your name. They know your fame,
Mm.
but they don't know your name, and you don't know their name.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I want to go to another clip, and this time we're going to watch Jamal Bryant.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Man, you should have prepped me for this one. Oh my God. Oh.
We're gonna look at Jamal Bryant. He was out in Baltimore in this clip, and let's take a look at it.
Man, can I holler at you, man? Check this out. This is what we want to know, right? I'm the streets, man. What I want to know, man, cold-blooded, man. You, like I'm saying, man, you say you for the people. You got our people all up in your church. You know what I mean? You're supposed to lead these people, man. And I mean, I understand that y'all stuff, but you had no answers for like, yo, man, then you come down here like late, like Tyrone been on the ground like 100, like 300-something days. You down here now. Don't come.
What'd you do for Tyrone?
We don't want you nowhere in our city, yo. Like we only want you on our streets. Like you disrespect our streets, man. This me, PFK home. I was on the front, you disrespected up here north, and you came down there, you ain't even fighting no war with us, yo. You ain't had nothing on your shirt, you ain't had no guns or nothing. And then you fucking with our oppressors. Wow. What you mean, how? You fucking with Roland Blake and all them, man. You trying to kill us, man.
Where were you for
That's you
Tyrone
are,
West?
man. Well, we telling you are. The streets feel like you killing us, man.
Then
All right.
I won't come on.
No, we don't want you in our fucking city now. Then get the fuck out the whole city. Is it that easy? Then we can really get you the fuck out of here?
No, sir.
Well, you check this out, man. Don't come nowhere down here no more. Wherever PFK Boom at, don't come. I know you can tell your henchman. I know you, yo, Timmy and all them. I know you before I seen right about all that. Get the henchman. Don't come down here no more. Boom said it. Me, as a man, the streets don't want you here. I'm speaking for them. So we see you here.
Okay.
So you said you won't come on my motherfucking streets no more, right?
I'm not coming.
Don't bring your ass down here no fucking more. I mean it, yo. On my fucking kids, yo. Cause you're a fucking disgrace. A guardian angel for Satan. Who? Cause you damn sure ain't guard me, nigga. Yeah, get the fuck up out of here.
What you do for
Fucking
Tyrone West
clown.
again?
Empower what? This dick, nigga.
Jamal Bryant, you should be ashamed of yourself for selling out your people for your fame and your wealth. SRB, we know where them perks went. Fuck 12. Leave the city, that's your first step. Take Davis in the war room and your cousin Brandon Scott. 300 men and they payments. They love a photo op. We taking back our city, one step at a time. Walk in solidarity. This is the front line. Now the Mosby's gotta go. Billy Murphy, you can leave. Got my right fist high saying fuck the police. We lead the sword nation. Shy and Keys, Shorty Underground the gun, and Brother Naeem, Shelly Helping Hands, boom. We
So Doc,
Puts a whole nother meaning on the walk of shame. Okay. Just on GP, you got to do something to him. You can't let him do that to you, bro. Not on camera. You cannot. Okay. You need to summon up that guardian angel that was on your shirt and do something to the brother. When he put his arms up like this, you should have snuck him. Okay. It wasn't going. It's not going to end good for you either way. Okay, so at least go out, showing that you can do something. He deserved that, man. He definitely deserved that, man. I don't like him. I'm serious. I don't like him. I do not like him. And I was, when Sandra Bland was killed, I don't know how he got there, but he appeared like, you remember the Flintstones, the Great Gazoo? He appeared like the Great Gazoo. And there was a he wanted to address a class. Okay. And so they called several of us, and I was like, yeah, I got a class, and they were like, do you know this guy? I said, I know who he is, but I ain't endorsing him. So he addresses my class. Do you believe that this Negra went up in front of my class and asked them if they knew who Martin Luther King was?
what?
Okay. He was supposed to address another class. They got wind that he was on campus at the local radio station. He bounced from that class. He didn't do the next class. He went to the radio station to get on the radio so he could be heard that he's on the campus. And then he wanted to deliver the message, because we were all coming together for Sandy. And Miss Geneva, her mother, she said, no, we don't know him. He's not, he didn't know her. And look here, next time I saw that brother, PFK Boom was up in his ass, because he left. We never saw him again, never heard from him again. And it was clearly one of those where, well, if I'm not going to be allowed to speak and be the featured person, then I don't want, I'm leaving. And that was, man, yeah, he ain't, and I'm not afraid to flat out just say, no, he ain't shit. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And to have people who, once again, well-meaning, who may just not have the information or the understanding of his ascension and the
Mhm.
things that he's done and the things that he said, and like I said, I mean, come on, man, you address my class.
Mhm.
Now, do y'all know who Martin Luther King is? Have y'all heard of the civil rights movement? I'm standing in the hallway just like, are you for real?
Mm,
Yeah,
mm, mm.
yeah.
Wow.
But it's, Michael Eric Dyson said this, and I find this to be very, very true. He said the Christian church is the only place where a Negro can stand up and say that he got the Holy Ghost, and he preaching in front of people, hundreds of people the next week. There ain't been no
Mm,
study. There ain't been no refinement. There ain't been no, no education.
mhm.
No learning. And for me, it's one of the reasons why we really do need to have a serious conversation about,
Mhm.
not only this prosperity preaching, but these charismatic preachers who ain't saying nothing. You know, it ain't
Exactly.
doing. And
Exactly.
you can say whatever you want to about the black church, but by and large, before COVID, it was still the place where we were. And
Mhm.
so you're dealing with a sleeping giant that whose slumber is maintained by irrelevant preachers who are almost like an IV of sleeping medicine that is being pumped into their bodies, you
Mm,
know?
mm. And Doc, I want to talk about this too, because Sandra Bland, she was one of your former students. Uh,
Yes.
when you got the news what happened to her,
Mhm.
take us through that. What was you feeling? How did that hit you?
Um, I'm not going to use the word devastated,
Mhm.
um, because there's a surprise element involved with devastation.
Mhm.
We're in Waller County. Waller County, my school sits on a plantation, the Alta Vista Plantation.
Mm,
Um, so every day when I go to work, I go to a plantation. It's one of the
mm,
things that we say that we will not do, that we kind of instruct the newcomers not to do. We don't walk on the grass
mm,
because we don't know where our ancestors are buried on that plantation. Now we do
mm,
know that there is a old slave cemetery um,
mhm,
on the grounds and what have you, but Waller County is, Prairie View A&M University is the only place in the world where the black students there are we refer to it as downtown Prairie View, but our student population exceeds the population for the county. We're the majority. And if we could only get all of them to vote, we could sweep the elections.
right.
And so you've had three court cases that I know that made it to the US Supreme Court asking the question of should these students be allowed to vote
Mm,
on a college campus? And it's because they're the numerical majority. And each time the US Supreme Court says, well, they have more of a claim to vote um, in the college election on the college campus than they do at home because they spend 9 months away at college. And
right.
that's that, so we're dealing with that, but we're also dealing with a whole lot of other things that have never been talked about
Mm,
within the public sphere that I don't really want to talk about
mm,
that led to that officer pulling her over. That little stretch from the edge of our campus to we call it the Northwest Freeway, I-290. I want to say that there were seven different law enforcement agencies that patrolled that little maybe I don't know, man, maybe half a mile stretch.
Mm.
And
Wow.
there's some concrete reasons why. But yeah, she was one of mine. Yeah.
Mm. Wow. I know after she died, I saw a few YouTube videos of her talking.
Mhm.
Um, I want to say, and you know, of course, we can't look at our people and necessarily say where this one is going to go or where this one is going to do.
Mhm.
But you know, we can see the aspirations and their productivity, what you know they could have been. What did we lose as a people in the passing of Sandra Bland?
I would say that we lost a brilliant young lady who truly walked to the beat of her own drum. Very courageous, very serious. One of the favorite memories that we have of her on our campus, we have a fountain, and it's you walk past this fountain every day, and there are benches, concrete benches that form like a circle, a broken circle. You would see her sitting out on one of those benches, smoking a cigarette and reading a book. And as a reader, um, I do the exact same thing. I'll take my lunch out, my breakfast or my lunch, and I'll sit outside and I'll just read.
Mhm.
And you would see her doing that, And so you lost ability and a boldness and audacity to really speak her mind. And you saw a bit of that during the police stop.
Mhm.
And her, like so many other young ladies on our campus, and I say this not from a position of disrespect, but Sandra wasn't unusual. We have quite a few of those type of sisters on our
Mhm.
campus, and the for me, and this has always been um, the key, we have to protect them as adults until they can begin protecting others as they enter into adulthood. And at the same time, encouraging them and not offering harsh judgments about them. We haven't done a very good job of that as a race, as a community. And if we're not careful, we will not believe that there are tens of thousands of Sandys that are out there. But they're out there, and if you are able to turn down the mischaracterization of Black women, you can see them. You know, yeah, yeah. I see them often. Being on, and to be honest with you, I see more of them than I see courageous, intelligent, enlightened Black men on college campuses because they are so numerically superior to them.
Wow. And Doc, going back to Jamal Bryant, and we saw the brother talking to him, and it was like I kind of get like the brother was testing him at first when he was like, "Get out of here! We don't want you to be here." And Jamal Bryant capitulated, and he was like, "So is that easy?" It was like, "So you really didn't have no love for us anyway. If it's just you ready to say okay, just like that." Um, and
You
I
might, you might,
know.
you might as you might as well say it as he turned to walk down the street. I hope they kill all y'all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was also done to Reverend Jackson in St. Louis, where Michael Brown was killed. They kicked him out. And I think it happened somewhere in New York. Sharpton got kicked out of a protest. By us watching this and seeing this, what should that message be that the members of our people out there in the street are sending?
What should the message be?
Right. What that we should be receiving when we watch our people kick these Jamal Bryants, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, kick them out and say, "Go ahead, we don't need you."
I think that in many ways that the people are the litmus test for leadership. Because if you don't have the people behind you, what are you leading? Are you in every way one of these hand-selected leaders that, because when you really think about it, can you be a Black leader without appearing on CNN or MSNBC? And if the answer to that comes up as no, because no one's going to know you, they're not going to hear your message, they're not going to hear what message they allow you to say on these channels. Well, then your leadership is being handpicked by outsiders and outside entities. And that's dangerous. So I think that there is a stamp of approval, an official stamp that one would get by being celebrated and supported by their own, by individuals like that, because they know who's been down there. They know who's been putting in the work. And the dangerous part and the unfortunate part of that is that, like that brother that was just talking, and all I know about him is what I just heard him say to Jamal Harrison Bryant. But those people, and I will use that term intentionally, those people have a movement already. Now there needs to be someone who not necessarily comes in to take over the movement and what have you, but there needs to be someone who tells them, listen, we need all of y'all. If all of y'all go get registered to vote, we're going to run you for city council. Okay. And that's how we're going to attack the system, not only from the outside, but also from the inside. And it's not a Trojan horse attack at all, because they see you coming. It's just that we are organized and we are powerful enough to go ahead and make this happen. That's what's needed as well. Okay. So when we have authentic, homegrown, grassroots leadership, we need to be organizing that leadership, and we need to be promoting that leadership even during, and I'll use this term, even though I can't, because I can't think of another term, even during moments of peace. And that leadership needs to be made to understand that we put you in there, we'll take you out. If you don't get in there and do what we send you in there to do, we got, we got 10,000 more that we can just put into your spot, and we'll all vote for them. That's how you hold their feet to the fire. But as long as all we're doing is assembling and in many ways having a session that could best be determined as therapeutic for the grief that we deal with, or someone, another brother or sister or child being killed, there is a role for that. But at the same time, that can't be all that we do. We have to attack this system as if we're playing football. We're going to hit it through the air and we're going to hit it through the ground. Yes, it has to be a multifaceted attack. And failure to do that is a indictment on not only leadership, but also our understanding of political science.
Exactly. Exactly. Do you fear a day, or maybe not fear a day, but do you see a day that will come, just like when we look over at Palestine and Israel, right? And they were pushing election, 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 election. They had elections, and Hamas won. The people elected Hamas, but United States, Britain, Israel refuse to see Hamas as a valid choice.
Mhm.
You know, they're like, no, you can't have them. You know, do you see a day where that statement, that kind of thing happens in America? If that,
Hell yeah, January 6th.
mm, mm,
That's what happened.
mm,
Whereas they felt as if the candidate that they wanted to win actually won, because these people actually believe that. I'm not going to deal with the conspiracy and the lunacy that's going on with them. But yeah, that's what you saw right there. And there's no doubt about that. But there has to be a general larger understanding that, quite simply, listen, just just because you're voting, and that's an accomplishment for some people, that's not the end all. We got to keep going. We got to keep adding to it. We got to keep agitating and what have you, and be willing to do something unconventional to get your point across. If you've truly been cheated, they've stolen it from you, yeah. Because that's the difference for me. That's the primary difference between white folk and black folk.
mm,
Black folk are going to agitate, and have activism within defined lines that are defined by the people who are oppressing them.
mhm.
For white folk, ain't no lines. They
Right.
went they went into Congress. I mean, come on. Think
Mhm.
about what they did, and think about what type of mindset would even liberate you enough for you to be able to do that.
Mhm.
That's not a normal mindset. That's a wild boy right there. That
Mhm.
that will flat out say, I will kick the police's ass.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Now,
in many
Doc,
ways, that freedom, that to do that,
mhm.
some may call it courage, that is developed over a lifetime. It's developed, just think about it. Have you ever been at a department store and seen a little white boy acting a fool? And
Mhm.
you say, if he was mine, I would get his ass right
Mhm.
back in line. But
Exactly.
that's what we do to black people. We
Mm,
we we create some very defined lines. You can't do this. You can't go out of that. And so there you go. So
mhm.
when it comes to protests, when it comes to activism and what have you, yeah, you've been socialized your entire life that there's some defined lines for them. What you mean some defined lines? They stole the
Mhm.
election. Let's go show them. And
Mhm.
they mean that shit. They ain't selling no wolf tickets. This ain't no, we ought to go down there like black people do. We say that to each other behind closed doors and then don't go do nothing.
Exactly. Mhm. Mhm. You know, Doc, with me, my thinking on January 6th, watching police officers running away,
Hmm.
and they got their gun right there on their side, but yet they're running, you
Hmm.
know, to me, that was like, okay, who told you not to shoot? Who told you to run away from them?
Hmm.
And there's one clip that I saw, and I should have downloaded it right then and there, but I didn't. And it was on CNN, and the camera was following them. and the cameraman pointed at the guard, and the guard looked at the cameraman and was like, I don't know what to do. Humped his shoulder, I don't know what to do. And, let everything just keep going. And then listening to the news people, and they're like, well, where was the National Guard? Where was this? Where was that? And like everything just stood down that day, So somewhere somebody said, let that shit happen. Stand down, let that shit happen. Let them throw, let them through, let them go, let them do what they do. And so, I think that, of course, if it was us storming the Capitol, we'd have been some dead people because they would have used them guns and pop, 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 there it is. But in this situation, do you see the point where the government itself, not the people, but the government will say, okay, y'all black people, y'all done elected these group of people and we don't want them. So we're gonna nullify that and make you go do again, or we gonna say this is who you will accept, like they did to Hamas. Do you see that happening?
I mean, it's already happened in American history. If you go back and you look at the era that we call Black Reconstruction, okay, that period between 1867 and 1871, we have two Black men out of the state of Mississippi, Hiram Revels and Blanche K. Bruce, who, the Black vote has been propped up and concentrated during that moment. They go to the U.S. Senate, and then white folk put their Black asses out and told them, no, you ain't no senator. And that happened. Here nowadays, it's several things that I wanted to say while you were talking. And one of them is quite simply talking about the reaction of the police. Listen, and I know that Black folk have been instructed on, and this isn't an instruction on someone told you. You've been socialized your entire life to understand this point. No white folk had better get hurt. If you wanna continue with what it is you're doing with your life, at whatever level that you have, no white people can get hurt. It's simply what it is. There is no getting around it. It's the reality. And no one has to tell you that. You've learned that throughout your life. And so the reaction of these officers is predictable when you understand the socialization of America. Okay? No Black folk, no white folk can get hurt. And it's what it is. That's the beginning and the end of it. So you do everything, even take this ass whooping that they're going to dole out to you, but you had bet not shoot them. Because if you shoot them, you're going to prison forever. Because they're going to put some charges on you. Because let's be honest, one of the more interesting experiences I had in life was I got to vet these political candidates that were trying to get the endorsement of a Black newspaper I was writing for at the time, African American News and Issues. And the DA, Kim Ogg, and she actually won. She was trying to convince me of why I should endorse her. And she says, listen, you got to remember that it's my office that sets the charge. I'm going to determine if it's first-degree murder, second-degree murder, if it's going to be manslaughter. I'm going to determine that charge. Somebody's going to determine that if you kill one of them white protesters, somebody's going to determine what that charge is going to be. It's a human that's going to do that. There's no doubt about any of that. Okay. Now, in saying that, okay, just consider for a moment. What if Tyree Nichols was white? We can't even in our imagination imagine 5 black officers beating the brakes off of a white boy.
Mm-mm.
Has that ever happened in history?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Now we can point to Rodney King getting whooped by Coon, Wynn, Brasenio, and Powell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we can point at Tyree Nichols getting whooped by brothers. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what's missing out of this? A white boy getting a good ass whooping. It ain't
Exactly.
happening. And it ain't never gonna happen. Okay, so
Mhm.
I don't buy the idea of someone telling the law enforcement that what you're gonna do is you're gonna just allow them in. I believe that naturally occurs.
Mm.
I believe that you have been kind of socialized or programmed that come on, you go ahead. Go ahead and open fire. Go ahead and act like you ain't got good sense. Black folk understand that not only on the side of police officers, but we understand that on the side of protesters.
Mhm.
It wouldn't have been no big thing. Look at these people. Look at what they were doing. They were breaking the law. That would be what was said.
Mhm.
With 892 black people dead at the Capitol,
Mhm.
and nobody would have went to jail. There wouldn't have been no questioning about anything.
Mhm.
But
Exactly.
let a couple white folk get killed. Oh, some heads gonna roll.
Mm, mm, mm. You know, and there was a few years ago, there was a shootout in Memphis. A
Mhm.
white father was in his truck and he had his white son with him, and he was
Mhm.
shooting at the police. And the
Mhm.
police returned fire, and the son got killed. The police bullets hit the son. You know, those police officers that fired are in jail right now.
Mhm.
Those black police officers that fired and killed that white boy is in jail right now.
Yeah, the thing is it takes me back to the old 70s show, Different Strokes. There's different strokes for different folks. Different strokes makes the world go round. And it's just what it is. And everybody knows that. And I truly believe that there are some of our white compatriots, as Baldwin referred to them as our white countrymen, who know that as well.
Mm,
This ain't no surprise to them. They know that as well.
mm,
Okay. And many of them are righteous white folk. And they'll still tell, oh yeah, you better not. You'll come up missing. And it's just what it is. That's the way of the world. And it's too late in the game for us to act and behave as if we don't understand these it's almost like a law of physics.
mm,
You better make sure don't no white people get hurt. Are you nuts?
mm, mm.
That's why that brother was running. You know, that brother, he was like, please, Lord, don't let them kill me. It wasn't even a
Mhm,
thought in his head of him killing them.
mhm. Exactly, exactly. And I was watching CNN, and one of the white people that they had on there was like, well, why did he run? Why did he run away from the police? That antagonized the police. And it's like he ran away to try to save his life. He
They
knew
tased him.
what's going to happen. So it's like
What
we
is that?
don't
Like a modern form of, what was it, Dracotomania? That there was something psychologically wrong with black folk because they didn't want to be slaves? There's something
Exactly.
psychologically wrong because you're trying to save your life?
Exactly.
That brother did the best. He tried to preserve the best thing that he had going for him, his life.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. And it's and I wanted to go over the film, but we can do it next week since we're running a little bit behind. And I wanted to take it phase by phase and break down and explain to our people what we're actually looking at and what is it, when you're in that, what I call, moment of decision. What are you going to do? What do you have to do? Because when they had that door open and they were hitting him and pulling him, trying to get him out the car and on the ground, to me, that's the moment of decision. In my mind already, you doing that to me, I'm fighting back. We going down blow for blow. You know what I'm saying? It's on and it's popping. That's the moment of decision. It is time to ignite, but what was later dropped in my mind, Doc, and I'm gonna say, God dropped it in my mind, is the reason why at the moment of decision we don't fight back, we acquiesce, is because we carry a lot of burdens with us of what we should be doing and what we should be doing and able to fit in to the nice little area that they prescribe for us to be the good nigga and obey. Do what the police tell you. And if they're going to whoop your ass, take the ass whooping and be good with it.
I mean, that's no different from what I was saying earlier about the department store, where Black kids are taught what the parameters are. This is a lifelong socialization process that you're going through, and so when you're in the heat of the moment, that overrides even your urge to survive. That brother didn't run right away. Okay. He stayed there and he tried to reason with them. He turns and he simply says, man, y'all doing a lot right now. Y'all doing too much. He was willing to go along with it, and I'm guilty of it as well when you're talking about the idea. And I believe that any righteous Black man who loves his children is guilty of this. I told my son, I said, listen, job number one is for you to survive.
Right.
Whatever it is that you need to do to survive, that's what I need for you to do. Because if you don't survive, it's all over for me. Because I can't function without you here.
Exactly.
Okay? And that's fatherhood. That's manhood right there. You have to think about this question that often comes up in my classes, and the question is this: is it more manly? Is it a larger expression of manhood for enslaved men who refused to run away because they didn't want to leave their children versus those that left them? There's something about being programmed as a Black man and having the wiring to be a protector, yet understanding that my protection, although I may want it to be so comprehensive, I got holes and I got gaps. And one of these officers, we used to say white officers, now we got to say Black officers. One of these law enforcement officers could very well penetrate our defense and take you away from here. And that's a troubling, disconcerting message.
It is. It is. Because I had that talk with my younger son, Jabbar, and I've been telling him all his life, you get in a situation, fight back, fight back, fight back, fight back. And then when he got to driving, and I gave him his first car, I changed it. I told him, you get in a situation with the police, do not fight back. Just go along, call me. I'll get there and I'll handle the business. And
Mhm.
he was, I mean, I could see the disappointment in his face, you know, because, you know, he's like, Pop, you know, you taught me all my life to fight, fight, fight. And now I'm of age and you telling me not to fight. You telling me just to survive the incident and let you deal with it. And he's like, but that ain't what you've been teaching me. So
Mhm.
why change it now? And I told him, I said, because it's important that you live. It's important that you live. I'll deal with that, but you live, you know. And he was angry with me
Mhm.
because he didn't like those instructions.
Mhm.
You know, he didn't
Mhm.
like those instructions. And it was hard for me to deal with, Doc, you know,
Mhm.
because it's like I do teach. When that moment of decision, engage. That's what I
Mhm.
teach. Ain't no ifs, ands, and buts.
Mhm.
But I'm telling my youngest boy, keep it cool, call me and let me get there. You know, and looking at his disapproval
Mhm.
that his dad switched it, you
Mhm.
know, it was a heavy burden for me to deal with. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I don't know, I don't even know how to deal with it, you know? But I know he better do what the hell I told him. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I recently, you know, my son and some of his friends, you know, they're like the United Nations. You know, you can just hey, they different, okay. And I, you know, I have an affectionate nickname for them. I call them Norks.
Mm.
They nerds and dorks at the same time. Okay. But they come up with this idea that they are going to, for the weekend, they're going to go to a lake. They're going to rent a Airbnb.
Mhm.
They're just going to go, you know, good kids. They're just going to go and they're going to hang out and have a good time. I know things are tenuous when I get a call from my son's mother. Okay. And she's like, yo, I need you to talk to him. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay. They're trying to go to Jasper, Texas, where James
Mm.
Byrd was drugged to death.
Right.
And you know, she was like, James is the biggest out of all of them. So they look at him like he Hercules. And
Mhm.
I had to talk to him. I'm like, look, no, we sitting this one out. Uh-uh. You're not going to Jasper, Texas, for a weekend because I know there's probably going to be alcohol involved. If it ain't alcohol with y'all, it's going to be alcohol with some of the other folk that are there vacationing,
Right.
and there's going to be very few black folk there. No, and I told him, I said, if you would agree not to go, I'll pay for you and two of your friends to go visit my best friend in New York City. Okay.
Mhm.
But Jasper, no, we can't because I can't touch you there. I can't protect you
Right.
there. I'm going to get the call after the incident, and that's
Mhm.
unacceptable to me. There's a responsibility for the aversion of the incident that needs to be adhered to, and that's what I decided I would that my advice to him was like, no, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. Not
Mm.
there.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, it's I would say that it is a bigger weight
Hmm.
being a black father than it is being a white father or any other racial father in America. Um, and other people really don't understand that. And I don't know, I don't know even how they don't, but they don't understand that. They don't
But
understand.
my question would be, how could they? How could they because you can't simulate that. You can't you could never get them to understand when we hear a police siren, it not only impacts us. Okay, police get behind us. It not only impacts us, but can you imagine us understanding that even with the wisdom and experience that we have, that we're sending our children out here to the wolves with less experience and know-how? And it doesn't even have to be a misstep. Okay. One interaction, one moment, and they're gone.
Mhm.
And so, it's got to be one of the reasons why. And I know that we talk about Black men dying early, but I believe that this is also one of the reasons why Black women are on edge so often, because we know in our heart of hearts that we're not in control.
Mhm.
We're not in control. Humans in general are not in control of what's going to happen to them. But if you're Black, not only are you not under control, but there are people who are actively seeking to do you harm or do your
Mhm.
children harm.
Mhm.
And how do you get comfortable with that knowledge? And how do you balance how we were just talking about? You were just talking about your son. How do we balance not scaring them to the point where they can't enjoy life?
Exactly. Exactly.
It's a hell of a
Mhm.
burden.
It is. It really, really is. It really, really is. And I think it is so important that we solve these problems so that our children can have a better life. I saw a video that I was going to get into today where a paraplegic in his wheelchair and the police is getting after him. He did have a stick in one hand and a knife in another hand. And he was running away from the police on his nubs because both his legs were gone.
Mhm.
And he was trying to run, and they pulled out them guns and bah, 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 shot him all up in his back and killed him. He wasn't running towards them, he running away from it. And they killed him. And you like, damn, you killed a man, he ain't got no legs, he ain't going far. You can walk and catch him, he ain't going far. You don't even use no taser, you automatically pow, 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 pow. So they kill our cripple, they kill our old, they kill our young, they kill our regular age. They don't have a limit to say, well, we're not going to, they're too old or they're too, handicapped. Don't matter. You open season because of your color.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how much longer does it take for the majority of our people to understand the reality that we live in? Because some of you, I'm telling you, Doc, I'm talking to some people and they don't understand that. They want to say, it's a different spirit, or they're not innately evil. They're not, it's not just because we're Black. It's because we were doing things that we shouldn't have been doing. Mm-hmm. Well, I say, well, what about Castillo, who died in Minneapolis when he was getting out his information out his wallet? The cop killed him. Mm-hmm. He didn't do nothing wrong. He was following instructions. Mm-hmm. And he ends up dead. Mm-hmm. So what are you saying? You're going to die whether you follow their instructions or if you don't follow their instructions, you still gonna be a nigga dead.
Yeah, but that's the exceptionalism that I was talking about earlier. That people find comfort, and I believe that it's a psychologically soothing resting place
Mm,
for them to explain away injustice, because to allow unadulterated, unaltered injustice to sit there means that they too could be victims. And I don't think that they're really considering that they could be victims and what have you, that their life is in peril along with everyone else, that they are somehow different. You know, it reminds me of Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, when
mhm.
one of the sons of the pizzeria, Spike's character was asking him, he said, so, I hear you talking all the time about nigga this, nigga that. Whereas the people you have up on your wall, they're niggas. And he breaks it down. He says, Michael Jordan is not a nigga, as if there is a exceptionalism for Michael Jordan. I believe that within, and this is an Italian guy talking about black folk. I believe that within Black America, that there are also these exceptions. And these exceptions are self-appointed, almost as if you're giving yourself a nickname type of thing. You're not like the others. You're not like the rest. You're different. And for some people to function, they have to develop these mechanisms that when you boil it all the way down, reek of cowardice.
Mm,
That's who it is, and that's what it is. They're cowards. And
mhm,
there's no real getting around that. That
mhm.
you're going to find any escapism, any illusion for your cowardice to not only live but to flourish, and that's a problem. That's a major problem amongst our people, and one could, once again, because this is coming from the psychological place. Um, it's not too much to term it a mental illness, because that, what other term do you have? What other understanding or explanation could one have for that? Whereas you're seeing people who look like you struck down in the streets, and you turn around and you don't necessarily, well, you are blaming the victim, because you're looking for something that they were doing, because this just doesn't happen. And it reminds me of who was it that said that Michael Jackson, um was it Chris Rock said Michael Jackson got his wake up call? I know Paul Mooney said something very similar. You got that wake up call. And unfortunately, for a lot of people who do get that racial wake up call, it doesn't undo what they convinced themselves of.
Mm.
And you'll find them saying things to the effect of, well, things just happen, instead of them looking at the preponderance of the evidence. And we're talking about not decades, we're talking about centuries of violence being perpetrated on Black bodies by white authority figures. And the only reason that they were able to get away with it is because they said it wasn't a crime, or it wasn't egregious enough. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about the quote unquote system. I think that to refer to it as a system robs it the reality that these are men and women who are making these decisions. who are making up this quote unquote system. And if you want this system to change, put your men and women in those places.
Definitely, definitely. I want to ask you last question before we go to closing comments. Um, I had a question. I should have wrote it down.
Uh-oh. You know, brother.
Um, what was the question? Oh, here we go. They say, and I read an article on it as well, and these are white folks who are they, said that seeing violence on TV, it is contagious to other white folks. School shootings, they gave that as an example. And so now they're getting into a thing where they don't want to show what happened or name the person who did it. They want to kind of talk around it because they're saying violence is contagious. Now, if that is true, that among white folks, violence is contagious, if they see it, then they're going to want to participate in it. They're going to want to be the next one that's committing the violence. What is the reverse effect or the opposite effect on Black people who see the violence being perpetrated against other Black people? If it makes other white people want to kill more, what is the effect on us?
I mean, it increases our terror within this nation. I mean, you have to be very clear that Black folk have been terrorized in America for hundreds of years, and I firmly believe, and I know there have been studies that support the notion that cells have memory, and so you have this raging terror that just continues. And one of the things that I would also challenge what you said with is this. You're talking about what impact does it have on Black potential victims? My question would be, what impact does it have on Black killers? Those who are not socially adjusted, who are seeing society give permission for the damaging and murder of Black people. What impact does that have on them? I would argue that, especially in a place like, and they changed the name from Chicago to Chirac.
Mm-hmm.
And Black folk have always seemingly killed each other in Chirac. Just seeing those images and understanding that very few ever go to prison, probably, behind that physical violence, that lethal violence that is used against Black bodies. Does that encourage Black folk to participate against other Black folk as well? We know it doesn't flow the other way. That makes Black folks say, well, we gonna kill white folk. No. I think that it is another moment of permission for Black folk to go out and do increasingly horrific levels of violence against Black folk that they don't recognize as their kith and kin, as their own people.
Wow, excellent, Doc. And Doc, in your closing comments, Dr. King talked about maladjusted, being maladjusted. Could you, in your closing comments, give us what that looked like in a modern day term? What does that look like? Should we be that way, or how do you see that word?
Be what way? Should we be what way?
Should we be maladjusted? What does that look like? Are we that? can you answer that in your with your closing comments?
Okay. The idea when you're dealing with the idea and concept of being maladjusted, there are two ways that you can look at that. You can look at the horrors that are occurring within society as being perpetrated by individuals who are maladjusted, but I don't see it that way. I think that what Dr. King was talking about is that in this horrific world that we live in, that we need to be maladjusted, that we need to not look at this as normal, that everything can be weaponized, that everything can be utilized to advance some personal agenda and what have you. What happened to the core principles of righteousness, morality, kindness for your neighbor? We in this world, I hope that people will look at me and will say, well, Jones is maladjusted, because I would hate to be grouped in with individuals who hate their own kind, hate their fellow countrymen. So being maladjusted can sometimes be the preferable position where one needs to be. And I yield.
Excellent. Thank you, Doc. And your closing comments?
Glad I got here. Glad that that I got a brother that I can build with, and it's at the same time that it's enjoyable and exhilarating. It is also a psychological balm, a release for me to be here, to be able to work through some things that are in my head. And I love this space, and I hope others will grow to love this space and will join in on us and participate. Send us some questions if you want to, and we'll definitely do our best to address them and answer them.
Excellent. Exactly. Yep. So we thank you all who will be watching this. And as Doc said, if you got questions, please send them. We'll go through them and answer them. And hopefully you get the direct answers that you're looking for. One thing that I think when people ask questions, sometimes they're looking to get affirmation of what they already think.
Mhm.
And you may get something different.
Mhm.
And because you got something different, they get upset and don't want to pay attention no more. But there's a lot of growth that has to come. A
Mhm.
lot of growth has to come, because we are one people and we're trying to get us together so we can do the things that need to be done to deliver ourselves from this situation. And that's something that has to be taken on right away. It's not something we can go to sleep and wait for somebody to come
Mhm.
down and do for us. We got to get up and make it happen for ourselves. So as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm gonna kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black First, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Peace.
Peace. Where's the... Oh, here we go.